This story was told to me by someone close to me, a person fascinated by the mystical. Though they won't claim authorship, I have to say, their way of speaking is truly remarkable. Their unique intonations may not exactly conjure a sinister aura, but they do an excellent job of setting the mood. I have no reason to doubt the truth of what they described. The events took place not so long ago, in the mid-1990s, in one of the former Soviet republics. I always get confused about family relations. So let's just introduce the main character, Valeria, or Lyra, as the narrator's aunt. You know, no matter our personalities or worldviews, we all keep certain lucky items close. Objects we trust like reliable talismans. For good fortune, or to ward off ill influences. We might give them our own names, especially if they carry a personal touch. And some symbols or protective artifacts have become so woven into our daily lives, so widespread, that they've merged with common traditions, losing their original meaning and significance along the way. But if you met Lyra today, you might be surprised to learn that her chosen protection is a Bible she carries with her. Does that make you smile? Well, it's no laughing matter for her. So let's tell her story. She was an ordinary woman, in her early 30s at the time. Like everyone else, she wasn't prepared for the shock of post-Soviet life. Like everyone else, she tried to figure things out and build some kind of future. On a personal level, her prospects were dim, if not downright hopeless, though other aspects of her life stabilized quickly. She lived alone, absorbed in her own affairs and the concerns of close relatives. Men noticed Lyra, but none stayed for long. Of course, she put in every effort and took every initiative, but it didn't help. Some even advised her to visit fortune tellers. Maybe it was the crown of celibacy or an evil eye. But Valeria was a devout, cautious woman when it came to magic and witchcraft. Who knows? Maybe for good reason. She wasn't fanatical, but she had no desire to dabble in anything beyond the familiar. At that time, she got a job at a law firm as an assistant to a criminal defense consultant. It was a busy job, but given the chaos and legal confusion in the Republic, it paid reasonably well. One downside, the firm occasionally provided lawyers as state-appointed defenders. For Lyra, these mandatory cases didn't bring much profit, though they did eat up her time and energy. One day, a woman in her 50s, maybe older, maybe younger, came to see them. You know how it is. When Asian features predominate, after a certain age only a passport can tell you for sure. Without preamble, the stranger got straight to the point, and latched onto Lyra. "You can help my son," she said. Not a request, but a statement that brooked no objection. "He's in prison. He's going to be tried. Please tell me everything from the beginning," Lyra said, instinctively pulling back from the odd woman. Dressed in dirty rags, she looked like either a Roma woman or a Yehudi. "My son's been arrested and they want to try him. They told me you'll be defending him." Quote, "Yes, actually, the request for a lawyer came in today." The visitor hesitated, then continued, "I'm asking you, please do your job well." She put special emphasis on the last word. "We'll do everything we can to." Quote, "Understand. I have no one but my son. I'll thank you. We don't have much money, but we have one valuable thing." "Oh, really? Don't worry. We'll defend him properly. We'll do everything in our power. If you get him free, our gift will help you," the woman said, fixing Lyra with an intense gaze. It was so piercing that the lawyer actually flinched. She felt a mix of distrust and curiosity. Valeria agreed. The client's oddness had stirred her curiosity, and she'd have to work on the case anyway. But now there was an element of intrigue. Lyra fulfilled her part of the bargain with diligence and care. The prosecutor couldn't prove guilt. The defendant was acquitted and released right in the courthouse. And the next day, Lyra received the promised gift. It was an ordinary little book with a homemade cardboard cover, typed on a typewriter. Classic samizdat. This was how works by foreign authors, banned by censorship, often circulated. The book's content didn't raise any suspicions either. It was a story, a novella, a completely neutral retelling, with no title or headings. Lyra couldn't, or wouldn't, recall the plot, but she assured me the book didn't scare her. She'd even begun to feel disappointed with her reward, until she remembered the previous owner's words. This book will fulfill your wish. Just read it to the end, and think about what you want. And with that, they parted. The strange client never reappeared. For a while, the book sat on Lyra's desk. She'd nearly forgotten about it. But one evening, while passing the hours before bed, she remembered the unusual gift. After all, it's not a sin to simply read and dream of happiness. A woman doesn't need much. Just a man who loves her. And where there's love, other good things follow. Lyra began to read. Strangely, the words wouldn't stick in her memory. She had to use a bookmark, since there were no page numbers. The effect began as a shift in how she perceived her own thoughts. It became a kind of inner dialogue, where her abstract wish began to conjure very specific images. A man. What kind of man? Handsome. Smart. A brunette. Tall? Yes. Probably. Strong? Of course. It was mesmerizing. Enticing. Reading became a mandatory ritual. But then reality threw a new surprise. Lyra began to sense a presence. A clear, unmistakable feeling that someone else was in the apartment. The scent of men's cologne. The sound of footsteps. The creak of chairs in the kitchen. And it grew more distinct with time. Her sleep became restless. Her general unease grew. And the mental image became like a photograph. A tall, stately man with brown eyes. A brunette with a predatory profile. His beauty was captivating, but with a hypnotic power that made those who resisted it feel fear. Of course, beauty is a terrible power. But not this terrible. Her anxiety grew as she read on. Lyra noticed she'd pick up the book as if spellbound, continuing to read even when she'd decided the night before to stop this strange game of imagination. There were just a few pages left. Literally just a couple of sheets. When, in the dead of night, she heard footsteps. Lyra sat at her desk, her back to the door. But she didn't hurry to turn around. She focused on the strange sound in the hallway. Maybe it was burglars? But the footsteps were calm, confident. The door creaked and swung open. Whoever it was, they didn't dare to enter. Lyra lowered her eyes and read a few more lines. The footsteps came again. The unexpected visitor stepped across the threshold and froze. The woman felt a will-crushing terror, but kept reading. Again, footsteps and heavy breathing, like a winded beast creeping up behind her. Lyra stopped and slowly turned around. In the room, just 5 feet away, stood a man. The light from the desk lamp wasn't enough, though it was enough to recognize her own obsessive fantasy in the stranger. Tall and handsome, he looked unnatural, almost inhuman, like a doll or a bizarre masquerade costume that, by some magic, could perform the simplest mechanical movements. He looked around and paced the room, but didn't approach. A sudden thought flashed through Lyra's terrified mind. He can't see me. He's searching, but can't find me. Why? Read. Quote. The voice barely sounded human. So unpleasant, broken, and raspy. Keep reading. Quote. Whatever had taken the form of a handsome man couldn't hide its unnatural essence. Its malice and resentment were plainly twisting the sinister visitor's features. But the most terrifying part was that Lyra felt an insane urge to read the final lines. Hypnotic pull, or sorceress power, call it what you like. It didn't change the fact that the urge was there. The struggle was immense. She feared that any movement would reveal her presence. So she began to pray, whispering the simplest words that came to mind in such a situation. At that very moment, the figure left the room, its outline blurred, transforming the striking form into a mere shadow. The paralysis lifted, and Lyra, slamming the cursed book shut, rushed to her bedside table, where, among other things, she kept her Bible. She focused on the sacred text and began to read. She didn't close her eyes all night, while something clattered, thumped, and stomped around the apartment, as if an invisible resident was moving furniture. When morning dispelled the last traces of her restless vigil, Lyra quickly wrapped the book in old newspapers and carried it to the backyard, intending to burn it, but she couldn't bring herself to do it. Her hands went weak. The matches kept going out. Terrified of retribution from dark forces, Valeria decided to leave the book in the local library. She slipped it onto one of the top shelves in the periodicals section. It was dusty and deserted there. The book seemed to vanish into the heap of forgotten paper. Why didn't she throw it in a dumpster or destroy it completely? Most likely, out of fear. Ever since then, however strange it may seem, Valeria carries a Bible with her everywhere. It's a new edition, not as heavy as the one that helped her ward off the unclean. Now it's her talisman, her protection.